A Los Angeles dock worker becomes a boxer,
Sure, why not?
but his crooked manager is involved in various rackets and he's working for the mob. Fred Williamson, Bernie Hamilton, Vanetta McGee, William Smith, Charles Lampkin, Mel Stewart, and D'Urville Martin star in Hammer from 1972, directed by Bruce D. Clark and brought to you here on The Mission by Vincent Williams. Vince, what say you of Hammer?
Well, it's actually appropriate. We were joking about a film like Deep Blue Sea because I do think the perfect time to have seen Hammer was the weekend that it came out in 1972 in a theater filled with young people.
Yep.
As sort of a communal experience. The second best time to see it would have been during the golden age of Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Where you and your friends, you get together and you buy some food and beverage of choice and you make a night of it where we would get like 3 of these films because, much like this one, they come in about an hour and a half. So they're not long. You don't have to do this because it's not a lot there as far as the film. As you said, as far as the plot goes, Fred Williamson plays B.J. Hammer, who, as you say, he's a dock worker, and the film starts out, lets you know that he is a dock worker who can talk with his hands, gets into his fight, becomes, gets recruited by this corrupt manager, mobster, criminal. It's all kind of vague.
Very nebulous.
All kind of vague.
Yeah.
And then again, plot-wise, we're supposed to follow his journey as he becomes a boxer. And using even a phrase like plot and journey is very loose because this is a film that, again, it's an hour and a half. I think it comes in at an hour and 31 minutes. And that includes the credits. That includes an amazingly long chase scene.
Yeah.
That includes a training montage that is completely unnecessary for the amount of actual boxing that you see. So that the irony is that someone like Fred Williamson, the man and the actor, became one of the most vocal defenders of quote unquote blaxploitation films. Like, he famously did not like that term. He thought that it was kind of intrinsically racist and people, but there were a group of films that just were not paid that much attention to. Like, there just was not enough attention paid to the construction of the film. And this very much falls under that. And I think, Fred Williamson, you completely understand the instinct to put Fred Williamson in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Good looking guy, well-built guy, and the film knows it. Like, in the film that's an hour and a half, I think literally he spends half of the film with no shirt on.
Yes. Or when he does have a shirt, it's got a deep V.
Right. Deep V. Well, even you're saying a deep V, but like there are 2 or 3 times where he's out and about and he has on a jacket and no shirt. But talking about this lack of attention, this is, I think, our 3rd time or 4th time talking about Fred Williamson. I think Fred Williamson is actually really charismatic.
Yes.
Like Fred Williamson is the embodiment of that type of man that women want to get with, but men want to hang out with. Like, he seems like a good dude. And this film doesn't capture a lot of that.
No.
Like I looked it up. This is, technically his second film. I don't know when The Legend of Nigger Charlie was shot, but it came out a couple of months before this. But both of them came out in 1972. Maybe if I squint, or if I'm feeling generous, I can say maybe the director didn't know what he had with Fred Williamson. But by this point, he had been in MASH, the film, where he was good. He had been on 17 episodes of Julia.
Yes.
Where you saw him as this leading man. So it really is just kind of this neglect that the film doesn't tap into his charisma, like the charisma part of him. Vanetta McGee, she's there to be pretty. Like her whole job is to be pretty, and she is pretty. But there's no real purpose.
You don't really even get an idea of what she's doing.
You don't understand why she's involved in this criminal activity, what her connection is to these people. And in her character's defense, I never really got a sense of what this criminal endeavor did.
Yeah.
Like it starts out and there's this, there's like this deep kind of 1972 mafia type guy who's talking about importing drugs and they're smuggling in drugs.
$1 million in heroin.
$1 million in heroin. But then that plot point goes away completely.
It's gone.
Until the aforementioned car chase scene. And then it goes away again. As we said, the whole primary plot is that Hammer is in this corrupt boxing operation. So at some point you know he's going to have to throw a fight. But that doesn't happen until the very end, and even that is almost an afterthought.
Yeah.
So just as a plot, it's nothing there. Direction wise, there's nothing really going on.
No.
The fight choreography is nothing. The chase, like nothing is really there. So as this sort of film experience, it's nothing there. Now, as a 70s deal, again, it's 1972, you love it. Are there a couple of things in there that I said, oh, hey, how about that? The main black gangster is played by character actor Charles Lampkin. He plays Big Sid. And Charles Lampkin is one of those actors.
He shows up.
That kind of shows up. He did a lot of work on television. He would show up in films. And I said, hey, it's that guy. And I do have to say, it was interesting seeing him play a heavy.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, he doesn't really do that much. Along those lines, the person who plays the professor, who's the coach.
Mel Stewart.
Now
that's dude.
Love Mel Stewart. The funny thing is, the thing that I love Mel Stewart in the most is Let's Do It Again, where he also plays a boxing coach.
Manager.
Manager. So, it's like, oh, okay, there. We mentioned Dervo Martin showing up, and it's like, okay, well, sure, that's weird, Dervo Martin. And in one of the scenes that he shows up, he's talking to one character, and quite honestly, it felt like that scene in Airplane where the two brothers were speaking Jav.
Yeah.
Because there is a scene where the brothers are speaking Jav to each other. Lynn, I actually had no idea what they were talking about.
No idea.
Like they were talking back and forth and laughing and you're going to do the cards. You got to have your toes curled. And I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. I did not know what was going on.
Blink and you miss them. Rerun
It shows up in the background.
It's like, is that rerun in the background?
Pop locking, dancing.
Locking?
Yep. Yes, he is.
And you know what, Lynn? I have to say, this is a kind of random, bizarre energy that I love about these 70s films. You know, again, speaking of these two character actors, I think the biggest crime that this film commits for me, and it's always a sign of really lazy storytelling to me, is that when they give Charles Lampkin as Big Sid and they give Mel Stewart as the professor a moment to allude to their past, they allude to stories that seem to be far more interesting than what's on the screen. At one point, the professor says he used to be a boxer, but weird women, alcohol, and a corrupt manager landed me here. And I said, wait, I want to hear more about the weird women and the alcohol. Like, this is way more interesting than this. But ultimately, there's a reason that we talk about films like Cotton Comes to Harlem, Shaft, The Split. And I don't think it is a coincidence that these are three films that were and I picked action films. Like, I don't want to talk about like Claudine and the Learning Tree. I'm talking about action films. And these are films that are adapted from novels so that there's more heft and weight to the actual narrative. And they just so happen to be set in the 70s and star 70s actors. And then you have films that we have referred to as blaxploitation films. And I think this is very much one of the latter, so that I'll stop where I started. I do think if you want to have a night of blaxploitation, you want to stream some things and you want to, pile up 3 and load up 3 and then watch them. Sure, this can be one of them. But as a film experience in and of itself, I found it kind of forgettable and a bit of a waste.
Yeah, I think one of the things that saves this film, because I agree with pretty much everything that you said. The story is, it's, first of all, if you've seen a lot of boxing films, you've seen semblance of this story already, right? And considering that this is set in 1972, if you have seen Rocky first and then watch this, a lot of these beats are going to kind of maybe feel a little familiar. So the story's not really doing anything. I don't think he taps into Fred Williamson's charisma. But to be fair, I think Fred Williamson, while he has done work at this time, I think Fred Williamson is still trying to find his way as a leading man in this film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, certainly
in film. Upon where he, everything is centered around him, because his character is pretty much like, it's the lead, but he's also like, for 1972, almost squeaky clean good guy, right? And I don't think Fred Williamson fits in that role, right? You can still be a good guy, but then he's a little bit more edgier. And I don't think he's allowed to show his edges as much in this film as he would progressively as he moved on into the other films. But he's there. His essence is there. You can get the hint that there's something more. The director doesn't know how to pull it out of him. You get the hint that if Vanetta McGee had been given something to work with, she might have been able to do something with it. But we will never know, because she's not giving pretty much anything to work with. Even though, to be fair, there is, as you talked about, montage. As of course, is the prerequisite lovemaking scene in this film, which I think is very tastefully done. Yeah,
you're right. You're 100% right.
Yep. And actually, not more than tastefully done, I think it's actually very, tenderly and beautifully done, especially in the way that it moves from them being in bed, making love to one another, to the following morning.
You're 100% right.
As they wake up and then into their day.
That's a good moment.
That is actually a very beautiful moment.
That's a good
ending
moment.
with a soft kiss between the two of them. And it is moments like that one, you see that there is a hint of chemistry between the two of them. I don't 100% ever believe them as a couple, but that's more because of the lack of development of her character than anything that they're doing. But that is also a scene where you see what the saving grace of this movie actually is the cinematographer, Robert Stetman. Because the direction, like you said, is nothing outstanding about the direction, but the film looks good.
Okay.
The scenes are well done. That montage is beautiful. There's a scene of those two just laying in the bed that I think is a gorgeous scene. And it's a scene that you don't often see because it is not two people laying in bed, post sex. They're actually just laying in bed in love. Yeah. Growing in love with one another. Her legs stretched over his waist. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment. So that is the saving grace of this film, is that it is a good looking movie. There are and in a bit of a defense of some of the direction, there are some shots that are interesting in the opening, like you mentioned, where there's a fight at the dock. There are some interesting angles where you're looking almost in between people's legs as they're fighting, yet you're seeing people in the distance watching them. That's a hard shot to pull off. They pull it off.
I didn't think they did.
I think they pulled it off for the most part. Okay. I mean, is it Spike Lee may have framed it better?
At like a fight on Batman.
But I thought it okay. It worked for what it was doing. It was one of the better shots.
Sure, okay.
Let's put it that way. So you had that save in this film, but then everything else is just what it is. Of the performances, the performance that I enjoyed the most, like you just mentioned, is Mel Stewart as the professor. Yeah. I would have gone for a prequel of the professor. I would have been there for that. Charles Lampkin as a heavy. You're right. You don't usually see him as like a pure heavy. Right. And I think it shows in this film because he kind of waffles a little bit.
You don't really understand his deal.
Yeah. But to be fair, the movie, like you said, it throws so many balls in the air that you don't know what is going on.
Like that level of uncertainty, which I think lends a little spark to a movie. I don't know if it was deliberate or if it was just, again, this sort of lazy writing.
I didn't think it may have been lazy.
I mean, I
lazy
did
writing. Yeah.
I 100%. I did know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I would say it was a shame if you didn't already know that Fred Williamson would go on. Like, this would not stop the Fred Williamson experience.
Look, in 3 months, Black Caesar's about to come out.
And it's a done deal.
Yeah, it's a done deal.
We're off and running.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect amalgamation of the Fred Williamson character on film. He's finding his way here. And you can see what lies ahead in Black Caesar. Other than that, you're right. It's a film that's a little forgettable. And unfortunately, the writing is on the wall. One of the things that is celebrated about this era of film that we talk about is, of course, the themes and everything that happens in it. Sometimes, to a degree, the soundtrack. The soundtrack ain't nothing to shout about. Like, the opening song is just, Hammer! He's a bad man.
Look, man.
And we're done.
Someone said, Solomon Burke, make me something like Shaft. Here's $30.
Hammer. He's a bad man.
Yeah.
I'm going to McDonald's. So you have that. But the other thing that people talk about is at least you were fooled into thinking you were going to see something good because the movie posters would look so great.
Yes.
The movie poster for Hammer is a picture of a black and white picture of Fred Williamson, shirtless as he is for most of the movie.
Yes.
But it's just him. There's nothing around him. It's just all this white around him. And then real tiny at the bottom, like, because it's his top torso, real tiny at the bottom, there's a car, there's a couple of women, and there may be a boxing ring. That's it.
Yeah.
And then there it says Hammer.
Hammer.
As if it in the shape of a hammer.
Yes, right.
But it's like off on the side, like away from him.
It's not the best poster.
It's not
Cleopatra Jones.
It's not Cleopatra Jones.
7 of pure dynamite.
It's not Cool Breeze.
Yeah.
It's not Superfly.
Look.
It's not, Uptown Saturday Night.
Right.
It is just boring.
Yeah.
So you're saying you might have been in a theater filled with people watching this movie. I don't know if a whole lot of people, that wouldn't have made me go to this movie.
Look, it's Fred Williamson. I'm assuming, I guess, like you said, he was good at football. Like, I'm assuming.
You don't know nothing.
I'm assuming Fred Williamson. Well, but here's the thing. Part of the reason I chose this is that this is at the beginning of the Fred Williamson as the blaxploitation star.
Right.
Period.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, this is a poster that you could 100% argue for in 1974.
Okay.
Because by then, so now I'm wondering, was The Cell, this is a starring vehicle for Fred Williamson. He don't have no shirt on. Like, that's all you need. Like, that's the whole selling point. Because again, we talk about them, and part of the reason I chose them, I do think Fred Williamson and Jim Brown, for me, are the two most fascinating personalities to come out of the blaxploitation period. Like I think Pam Grier transcends pretty quickly.
Yes.
Even if her acting career doesn't necessarily, like, she becomes almost iconic.
Okay.
Outside of it. And
not almost, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. We just talked about I just forget Cleopatra.
Thandaway Newton?
No, Cleopatra Jones. Tamara Dobson.
Yeah.
Who is kind of synonymous with Cleopatra Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know how much she was going to do
outside of
it, just because, she's just such a tall, imposing woman. Like, I think she has a personality. I think she could act a little bit, but just, I don't know what kind of opportunity she was ever going to have.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jim Brown was actually a good actor.
A very good actor.
Who got pulled into this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, while I don't think Fred Williamson at his best is a great actor, I think he's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the charisma more than makes up for it.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you look at the stats, you can put him right next to Steve McQueen.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's black and it's the 70s, he never got the Steve McQueen opportunities.
I don't see, the only pushback I'll give on that is that I don't know if it's so much that he didn't get the opportunities versus Fred Williamson, from everything that I've learned about the man, wanting to very much be in control of his own destiny.
Yes, absolutely. But part of that is because he's a black man, he can't. Or rather, people are going to resist that. B, he doesn't have the luxury to be Steve McQueen and just say, I'm going to take projects here, there, and the other. Like, these kind of projects are going to come to me. Like Fred Williamson has to take control, or else, like, he's not going to be able to do stuff.
See, I don't know about that. I think that Fred Williamson, we'll never know.
Right.
But I think Fred Williamson exuded enough charisma in these films that I would imagine he might have gotten some nibbles to be in some more, mainstream type of fare.
As the lead?
See, that's the thing.
Well, but
maybe not the lead.
But he's clearly a leading man.
Yeah,
that's my point. Like, that's my point exactly. Like, how you going to make Fred Williamson play jive-talking black sidekick? Which is 100% what they wanted him to do if he left the blaxploitation world.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I could see a world where Fred Williamson is approached to do maybe even same type of film, but for one of the main production houses, because they were trying to dip their toe in this as well.
No.
But Fred Williamson wanting to be, yes, the lead, and yes. I can see them maybe trying to pull him to be the lead, but Fred Williamson wanting to be the lead and the lead producer.
Okay,
on there, and them not being willing to give him that.
Sure.
And that's what keeps him in this realm where he can be the man that calls his shots.
Because I'm talking about Steve McQueen. I think he ends up being a good actor later in life. But Fred Williamson very much could have had all those Burt Reynolds roles in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, he very much could have been in Smokey and the Bandit. But come on. Like, that was never going to happen.
No, that was never going to happen, but
I don't want to lose this because this is super important. You were talking about the love scene and the little montage afterwards. Did you pick up that that's what Black Dynamite was spoofing?
Yes, I
did.
said,
oh, this is where Black Dynamite got it from.
Yes.
Why was BJ Hammer out there playing with the children's? BJ Hammer was playing with the children's.
BJ Hammer could not make a shot. Did you notice that? Fred the Hammer Williamson was a football player. He was not a basketball player.
McGee was out playing with the neighborhood youth. With an F.
So would you recommend that people see
Look, man,
The Hammer?
I've been talking about, like I'll tell you, this here's a good night for you, right? You start with this, you go to Truck Turner, you end with Shaft. Or if you want something kind of bombastic that moves more, something like Cotton Comes to Harlem. And the pool gets deeper as the night goes on. But as just a film by itself, unfortunately, no, I don't. I just don't think it's enough there outside of its kind of historical, the history of it being that this is his first or second film. But yeah, I can't recommend Hammer either, folks. I just can't. I just don't feel it's worth the time. If you find yourself sitting in front of the screen and it's on, sure, fold your clothes to it, but do not be afraid to get up and move, because there are better Fred Williamson fares out there, like Black Caesar. Look again. I seem to remember those Nigger Charlie movies being very good. Someone brought up That Man Bolt, which I thought was fun. Yeah. You and I both said it before, and it's worth. If you want to see Fred Williamson at his loosest, Fred Williamson in 3 the Hard Way is amazing. Yes. Like, he's actually a good time in 3 the Hard Way. But to your point, and I think you may have said this in the episode, you can almost feel his weightlessness because he's not the only lead. So he can kind of have fun and bounce against someone like Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Jim Brown can carry the thing on his shoulders.
Yeah. And Jim Brown is so serious. You can't help but be right next to Jim Brown.
Right. Jim Brown is the original I am smiling.
I think this is an interesting question, so I'm just going to go here. Farrah Blackwell asked a question: what movie from around this time would have been a mainstream role for a black leading man? I know you mentioned like Smokey and the Bandit. That's around this time, but I'm trying to think.
And Smokey and the Bandit would be more 80. Like Smokey and the Bandit is actually post Star Wars. Like I think once you get post Star Wars, it's a whole different landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the problem with a mainstream film around this time, frankly, so you know, the one that jumps in my mind is something like The French Connection, and frankly, Fred Williamson is not a good enough actor to be in The French Connection.
I think French Connection is maybe about a year before,
or like Dog Day Afternoon.
No,
right? Like I think I think before 77, a lot of the white films were real heavy. I mean, what year is Bullet? Like I just talked about Steve McQueen.
Bullet's around that time.
He 100%.
I think he could have
been in Bullet.
It would have been different, but I think he could have pulled off Bullet.
Yeah, he absolutely could have been in Bullet.
Yeah. Bullet's a good one. Bullet's a good one.
I think he could have pulled off Cool Hand Luke.
I don't know about Cool Hand Luke.
Paul Newman is not doing a lot in Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah,
like so much of Cool Hand Luke is attitude.
Yeah, but Cool Hand Luke, Paul Newman is a lot more. It's a little bit. It's a little deprecating.
Yes,
and I'm not sure. And maybe it's because we haven't seen it.
Right.
I'm not sure Fred Williamson has that speed.
Well, I think he's funny. Oh, dude, he is actually cracking. He cracks us up in 3 the Hard Way.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Yeah, I guess.
What is it? A 1,000 yards? What's the football in jail movie?
The Longest Yard.
The Longest Yard.
Now I could have seen him in The Longest Yard.
Been in The Longest Yard.
Now that there you go.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the Burt Reynolds.
I was
movies.
about to say, what is Burt Reynolds doing pre Smokey and the Bandit?
In The Longest Yard.
Mm-hmm.
He could definitely have been in The Longest Yard. And that would have fit him perfect.
Yeah.
You know? And now here's the thing. Even if Burt Reynolds is still in The Longest Yard, I think Fred Williamson would still have been good in that film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, and I think he would have been a standout. That's the type of role that I could see somebody coming to him and him saying, "Oh, I'm not doing Burt, then I'm going to go over here and make this Adios Amigos instead."
Right.
And that might have been like the wrong move for him because I think he could have set himself up for some more interesting type of roles.
Yeah.
Down the lane.